Welcome to Bits to Billions, the unicorn story. We are in conversation with Mayank Kumar, the co-founder and managing director of upGrad, which is targeted mostly at working professionals. It helps them upskill and get a leg up. Mayank, it's good to be in Mumbai, right in the middle of monsoons. It's rainy, it's windy. Which way is the wind blowing for upGrad? Because if I look at the education technology space, there's a lot of storm ahead, a lot of storm already underway in terms of layoffs and cutbacks. Which way is the wind blowing for you?
It's all the tailwind right now, Chandra. No headwinds right now for us. But I think the good part is that the ecosystem is maturing, and we are seeing a lot of newer things emerging, and specifically in the working professional, college learner, higher education ecosystem, things are looking far more interesting than perhaps what it was a year or 2 years back.
Right. But in terms of growth, a lot of the other edtechs we saw, they've suffered post-pandemic with things moving offline. Yeah. How has it been for you?
No, so I think for a lot of K through 12 ecosystem and let's say test prep ecosystem, yes, because of pandemic coming in, offline shut down. So a lot of demand went to sort of the online ecosystem, and now with offline opening up, some demand is bound to go back, and therefore each of the edtech ecosystem providers where there's an offline alternative, they're thinking of ways and means in which they can venture into that domain, but it will have a short-term impact. But I do believe that in the long run, given what happened during pandemic and how the shift happened, you will see a significant move happening, and online adoption will increase going forward because now people have experienced it. Education is a funny business. More people experience it, more people will come there.
Founded in 2015, upGrad is one of India's education technology unicorns, founded and run by Ronnie Screwvala, Mayank Kumar and Falgun Kumpali. Targeted at the 18 to 60 age group, upGrad is a higher education and upskilling startup that offers accredited courses and certificates in relevant industries such as e-commerce, big data and BFSI. It competes with the likes of Eruditus, Byju's owned Great Learning, Simply Learn, Udemy and Coursera among others. Its offerings cover various segments such as test prep, study abroad programs and undergrad degrees to campus courses in 250 universities. It was last valued at a reported 2.25 billion after raising 225 million. It wants to be in the full value chain of college learners and working professionals.
Mayank, the other thing that I've also noticed among other edtechs, mainly in the test prep space, be it your Byju's, Vedantu, Unacademy, they've all pivoted to offline. EdTech started with this value proposition that it's going to be online, it's really going to redefine the paradigm. But if you look at it now, it's almost as if we are back to square one. So will upGrad change its model in any way? Do you see a need to change your model? You're in a very different space, the higher education and upskilling space. But will you also have to make changes to adjust to the new normal, to adjust to the offline world?
So I think there's difference in the models that some of the other edtech providers are playing in, because at least in their segment there's an offline alternative, and therefore for them to capture the demand, they do need to have a presence in offline, because there is a customer preference for offline, they need to be there. There's a customer preference for online, they need to be there. So I guess for those sectors, specifically K through 12, test prep, tuitions and sort of tutoring centers, I do see a need for a lot of edtech companies to go towards offline, because there's a market sitting there where they can leverage technology and improve the efficacy, etc. That's something that they will definitely work on. But when it comes to, let's say, working professional college learners, because there's not that much of an offline alternative, online is the only option for most individuals to study and learn. And therefore for us, while we will be present offline, but that will largely be for acquisitions, counseling, being closer to the customer, and not necessarily for teaching.
Right. The other thing that I want to ask you, Mayank, is your value proposition is targeted at working professionals who want to upskill themselves in, courses that are relevant to their particular industry. In fact, 75% of your business comes from there, and 25% are perhaps people who want to pursue online degrees. But now with, the job market looking a little bleak, at least when it comes to startups.
Yep.
We've seen over 13,000 people being laid off. Do you still think people will invest in upskilling now, working professionals, or will they be more careful with the money they spend?
Sure.
Will they be more cautious? How is it going to affect the dynamic for you?
So there are interesting statistics that education is counter-cyclical to the economic sort of growth. So whenever the economy goes down,
The
higher
demand
education
for higher
picks up.
education goes
We have
up.
seen this in 2008,
Yeah.
2009. We have seen this in 2014, 15, 16, around the time when that transition happened. So I do see that this is the time when a lot of these individuals will go back to the drawing board, invest in themselves and become more relevant. And we are seeing that. I mean, given whatever is happening, we are not seeing a drop in demand. We are seeing same number of people actually more enthusiastically looking for a better sort of upskilling opportunity. In fact, when I look at this ecosystem, I also believe that what's happening in startup is a very small portion of the working professional ecosystem. There's a much larger IT services, BFSI, FMCG, retail ecosystem where people are looking at ways and means in which they can get to more new age roles, more sort of growth roles.
How is it working out for you? Will you also have to optimize and rationalize and all these terms that companies are using to
Right-sizing
cut
and right-sizing.
to cut costs?
Better terms for cutting costs.
Yeah.
No, there is, I would not deny that there is an environment where, funding is going to be difficult, funding is going to be tricky. So for every line of business, one has to be running it in a manner that is sustainable. We cannot run a business which every customer coming into us is loss making, and that shift has to happen. Having said that, there are other areas in which we are growing. So while the core business is profitable and will throw in cash, there are areas where we'll continue to invest. So we venture into study abroad, which is a very large part of our business. We are going to invest in that. We are looking at sort of our own branded skill certification program, where we are going to invest heavily on there. We have few job guarantee, job link program. We are going to invest in these elements. So there are multiple new areas, Chandra, that we have ventured into where we will continue to invest. So we are looking at hiring for leadership roles, for various sort of operation roles and executive roles. And those are places where we will double down and ensure that just because there is that talk of funding winter, we don't get into a place where we are not investing in future growth. That future growth is integral to our sort of long-term journey, because we are creating a lifelong learning pathway, and just one line of business may not suffice for us to be a lifelong learning provider.
Right. I must ask you, Mayank, if I talk to entrepreneurs in Bangalore, at least in the last few weeks, the mood is pretty bleak. People are talking about how everything has kind of come to a standstill, and what's the mood like among founders in Mumbai?
See, I guess, except for the monsoon, everything seems to be on track. But I guess there's no that much of difference between Bombay and Bangalore. In Mumbai also, folks are now looking at making and ensuring that they are not going beyond the means at which they need to operate in. So there will be that, you will definitely see a far more scrutiny in how people are hiring, far more scrutiny in what kind of resources that you are investing in. A lot of adjacent experiments that companies were doing will start slowing down.
That will not happen.
That may not happen, but if you're very clear about your strategy, then you don't think twice whether this is an experiment which is adjacent, but this is part of your strategy. So I guess those are the ways in which you will see difference, but I don't see that significant difference in Bombay and Bangalore, because money has no color and money has no destination preference. But we definitely see things getting more saner and more rational in the approach right now.
What will also help upGrad weather the current turbulence in edtech is the experience and wisdom of its co-founder and chairperson, Ronnie Screwvala, one of India's most seasoned entrepreneurs. Screwvala built a media and entertainment conglomerate UTV that he later sold to Disney. He started upGrad at the age of 58 with Mayank and Falgun. He's also an investor, having made investments through Unilaser Ventures.
Mayank, what's it like working with Ronnie Screwvala?
No, it is. I mean, you should ask him yourself on that question.
Yes. But I want to ask you,
No.
what's it like working with him?
No, look, I think
Ronnie, has his reputation of being a hard taskmaster, a tough person to work
Where did that reputation come from?
And I would not say hard taskmaster, but I guess a few things that definitely sort of you get to learn a lot is that no matter whatever thing it is, whether it is this table, this slide, or work, or revenue, or numbers, he's just overly particular about everything. And I don't know how he gets that energy, how he gets that work, but for everything, he wants to be extra sort of thought through and thinking it through, and that's something that I'm trying to pick up, but it's very difficult to pick up that trait because he has had that experience of doing it for so many years.
So when you say he's exacting, he knows every part of the business.
Every part of the business, more than perhaps the business owners also.
More than what I should be knowing.
That also is true.
But Ronnie, are all entrepreneurs inherently micromanagers? I mean, I wouldn't call it micromanagement, but you have to kind of have that attention to detail.
I think there's a misnomer that attention to detail is micromanagement. I think that you need to know a lot more. I'm not somebody who, if somebody asks 5 questions, I'll say, okay, let me open my laptop, let me figure this out. So if you're on top of it, your thinking gets a little cleaner and gets a little sharper. I don't think that should be looked at as micromanagement. Everyone at various levels of leadership should be on top of their game, top of their business, top of the details. And if you are, you can scan in your mind and come to better decision-making process. So to me, it's not micromanaging. It helps me clean up and take harder, faster decisions.
And how have you changed as an entrepreneur compared to the UTV days to upGrad?
In many ways, actually, it's a lot more collaborative process. When you're starting up something from the ground up on your own, you're an absolute first-generation entrepreneur that has never been able to raise money or debt. You look at things in a very different way.
Yeah.
Second, media taught me a lot of collaborative work because at the end of the day, you can only succeed in media if you're a great catalyst.
Yeah.
If you want to do everything there, you want to be the director, the producer, you want to be the creative person and the marketing person, it doesn't work. So I think that grounding that I got in media to be collaborative is exactly what I think is my evolution in terms of building teams. And my first instinct, therefore, Mayank in his own mind was thinking of getting into education. Separately, in a different world, I was looking at it the same way. But the very fact that I was looking for a co-founder and he was looking for a co-founder speaks the volumes of how one has emerged.
Ronnie, last year, edtech was the poster boy of the Indian startup ecosystem.
Created by the media themselves, but yes.
Don't lay this at media's door. This year, it's kind of become the bad boy of India's startup ecosystem.
Created by the media itself.
No, the data speaks for itself. I mean, more than half of the layoffs that are happening today are happening at edtechs. So, employees are asking a lot of tough questions. Customers are asking these questions that, if these edtechs had money to pay to Shah Rukh Khan and Amir Khan, Amitabh Bachchan is your brand ambassador, why were they not prepared to pay employees? They hire in one shot, fire at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah.
Why are we not building businesses that can weather even 3 months of a funding winter or, even 6 months of a funding winter?
Yeah. So I think very legitimate questions. Firstly, you can't judge business and sectors just on their capacity to raise funds and not. So, and this winter, I don't identify with that because there are 4 seasons in life and they come and they go. That's the idea. They come and they go and there's an evolution. There is a reason why winter leads to the next season. Okay, and it actually trains people in a very different way. You want that change of scenario. You learn a lot of lessons. I think winter is a lovely time to learn a lot of lessons. It separates the men from the boys and the girls from the women. It builds long-term businesses that outlast. And I think those are some of the positive points of that. Coming specifically to edtech, yes, when you're immature or naive and you get funded heavily, and then those same people sitting on your board say, where's the next level of growth? Why don't we diversify? At that stage, your cue is, let's pick it up and go forward, because obviously you raise more money than you needed. That's the first premise. So when you raise more money than you actually needed, because you were advised by the same people that take it from me, because otherwise you never know when I'll close the doors, I'll continue raising my own money and do $10 billion funds, but that's what it is. Then you diversify. So what you're seeing here is a correction. two corrections. One, the correction that COVID brought about in the K-12 sector.
Yeah.
And two is diversification because of more money with some of the companies, more than they needed. And that's the only thing you're seeing. But there is an absolute reskilling revolution that's going on, not just in India, but around the world. That's not slowing down. Do learners want to change their domain and vocation? Do more people realize that as a working professional now, I can actually carry on learning? Otherwise, you normally thought when you flung your graduation, you were done with learning. Yes, that is here to stay. So the hockey stick of K-12 and the excessive funding, those two are the only things that have actually changed. And thank God they've changed, because you're now in a sane time, a very good time where you can build things. Now, we should not misinterpret spending on brand ambassadors as a callous thing. You need to build credibility sometimes. Credibility is built across the board by a lot of people. So when you're moving from a brick and mortar credibility to an online credibility, you need a certain sense of attachment. And different people have different sense of how they want to build a credible brand. When we choose Mr. Bachchan, it was only for one aspect of our business, which is our study abroad business, because there we were touching parents who were taking a decision on a very expensive one to send their kids abroad. And therefore we felt Mr. Bachchan represented that. So I don't think we should categorize all of this in one large lump. And the last thing I would say is edtech is a very different animal in K-12 and a very different animal in higher ed.
Are you relieved that you perhaps did not dabble in K-12, that you took a call to be present in higher learning? I mean, because the chickens have come to roost, at least for K-12.
I can't be relieved, because I was very clear that is something we didn't want to do that. And I think when Mayank and I first came together, he was more clear than I was, that if you want to build an edtech company around the world, then outcomes is going to be the most important thing, and ROI for your learners is going to be the most important thing, and you'll only see that in higher education. You won't see that in K-12.
Do you think the tech has consumed the ed part when it comes to some of these unicorns?
It should consume, right? Because you're actually now creating a very selective process of being able to aspire and go to a university, which 99 out of 100 people can't go. And you're now catching the other 99 people and saying, look, you have an option through online. So it should be that. It should be that. It's not a bad thing.
Ronnie, you've been a serial entrepreneur who's successfully built up multiple brands and then found a strategic buyer for them, whether it's Hungama. Once.
Yeah. So it's not serial. I mean, I'm not continually the same person who bought Hungama bought UTV, which is the Walt Disney company. Just FYI.
Right. No, but I just